Welcome to Middle School Walk and Talk, a podcast series offering heart, hope, and health to members of our middle school communities. Hosts Phyllis Fagel and Jessica McGuire talk all things self-care, student well-being, school culture, and more. Middle School Walk and Talk is designed to support the concepts found in the Successful Middle School, This We Believe, and is a production of the Association for Middle Level Education. To learn more, visit AMLE.org. Today's episode, The Art and Impact of Quality Questioning with guest Connie Hamilton.
Hi, we're here with Connie Hamilton for an episode of AMLE's Walk and Talk. I'm Phyllis Fagel. I'm here with Jessica McGuire, and I'm excited to talk to you, Connie. Connie has written several books, the most popular being Hacking Questions. And as she often says, questions are the driving force of learning in classrooms. And Hacking Questions digs into framing, delivering, and maximizing questions to keep students engaged in learning. She's actually known in education circles as the questioning guru. And Connie shows teachers of all subjects and grades how to do a whole lot of different things that we're going to talk about today that have to do with questioning and supporting students in their learning. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you. The first question that we wanted to talk to you about is just how do you become the questioning guru? Where does your story begin, and how did you end up where you are right now, writing books and focusing so intently on this?
Okay, so the short version is when I was an elementary principal, we were working on building our formative assessment. And I was in a preschool classroom observing, and the questions that the teacher was asking were really leading. So she would say, would you find a cow near the fence or on the fence? And the little boy says, on the fence. And she said, think again. Would you find a cow on the fence or near the fence? And it just got me thinking that maybe some of our formative assessment data is skewed by the way that we're delivering questions and the way that we use questions. So I got super curious about quality questioning, and I connected with an attorney of all people who was doing some sessions on how to ask good questions, and it just kind of went from there. And so I started doing professional learning in my own school, really small school. And from there, it just started presenting at conferences so that I could get free or reduced entry into the conferences. And then people just started asking. So once I had built my own content, I thought, well, I could put all this in one place and have a book. And then Hacking Questions was born from there.
That's great. I love that story.
Your book, Hacking Questions, has become quickly a favorite amongst middle-level educators. Why is questioning and using effective questioning strategies so impactful, specifically in the middle grade classroom?
Engagement is a challenge, especially with this age group where there's so many hormones and development and all those kinds of things. There's a big discrepancy and diversity in the middle levels. Yeah. And I'm careful not to say 6, 7, because we can't go there with that. And so thinking about questioning and questions as two really separate thought processes, questioning as a verb. So how we deliver questions, how we engage students, how we set up an environment so students will be comfortable taking risks and responding to questions. That's all the questioning part of it. And I think a lot of times we hyper-focus on the questions, and then when they don't land properly or they're flat and we end up answering our own questions or we get surface level responses, we blame the question. And so looking at those two things separately and then tackling them both can elevate the quality of interaction and thinking and productive struggle and all of those things that all teachers want to have, especially at the middle level.
You started out by sharing a great example of a teacher asking a question in a way that was leading students to a specific answer. I'm guessing that's one of the common traps. What are some of the other pitfalls that teachers can find themselves falling into when it comes to questioning?
A lot of teachers have patterns or a style in the way that they pose questions. So a quick little video or an instructional coach to come in and just kind of track so you can be mindful of the the pattern that you use. So some of those patterns might be, I ask multiple questions in a row without really releasing the question to students. I have little or no think time for students to respond because the content is so familiar to me that I don't need as much think time. And so I'm anticipating and expecting students to volunteer and to be prepared to interact with those questions much faster. So when they don't, we jump in to try to scaffold the question, aka bring down the cognitive level of rigor for the question, making the question easier. And so all of those cues that we get can often come with a minimalization by just increasing your wait time and being mindful about just crafting a few key questions that are directly related to your learning target.
As an educator, once you form a quality question to students, you've talked about, I think you call it hearing the music and the students' answers and responses. So really deeply listening to what they're saying. How can teachers learn to more deeply listen? Because oftentimes we're very focused on wanting what we perceive as the right answer, or two, our mind, I think, as educators is going to our next step in our move.
100%. Yes.
How can we learn to be better listeners?
It's easy. It's easy to say, it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say in the sense that you flip your focus and you flip your mindset. So just like you said, most of the time the mindset is about getting students to the right answer or over the hump so that we can get to the next part of the lesson. And so we're very destination focused in the way that we frame our questions. And so we're not even always aware of the questions that we're asking because we're not thinking about the questions that we're asking. We're thinking about the answers we want to get. And so with a mindset shift of, I want my questions to expose thinking, not to guide answers. Your questions will automatically become more metacognitive so that students can articulate their thought process, which is way more helpful for teachers in their formative assessment process. If one student says the answer is 12 and another student says the answer is 12 and one student is like, well, 12 is half of 24 and that's how I got it. And the other student is like, well, I thought about this and the mathematical reasoning and blah, 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 blah. Even if 12 isn't the answer, right, looking at how they came about it is so informative about how to provide scaffolds, tiered interventions, what do we do in order to help the thinking process so it becomes less about how do I get through this worksheet or how do I finish up this activity or assignment, and it really becomes more of how do students leave this class or this unit with information they're going to take with them forever.
And as a teacher, maybe more about investigating the thinking behind that. Like, tell me more about why you're saying 12.
Exactly.
Even though we know 12 is not the right answer.
Yes, and that, speaking of patterns, teachers often have patterns in when they ask for validation or ask for justification of responses. So some teachers tend to do it when the answer is correct because they want to hear right thinking. Some teachers tend to do it when the answer is incorrect because they want to find out why the student got that. So kids quickly identify what your pattern is. So when you say, tell me more about that, or how did you get that answer, kids know, oh, that means my answer was wrong. And instead of thinking through their answer, they're worried about getting the right answer. They'll change their answer. Even when you ask them to say, tell me more, or how did you get that? They'll be like, oh, wait, no, not 12, it's 15. So in that, whenever a teacher notices that that's what they're doing, just stay in that same zone and repeat with the same articulation and semantics of how you pose that question. So how'd you get that? I mean, 15, how'd you get that? I mean, 20, how'd you get that? Right? And so just keeping that so that they're no longer reading into our question and they're actually responding to the request of, hey, I want to hear what your thought process was.
And kind of getting beyond that initial panicky feeling of being judged or embarrassing themselves. So I love these practical examples. Are there any other questions you can share? How to do it right, how to do it wrong, or how to tweak a question just a little bit to get a lot more out of it, just to kind of demonstrate for people listening how to do this?
Yes. So the second half of your question, how to tweak a question, add the word might to a question. So instead of what is the theme, what might be the theme? And so that softens the question. So students who feel like they have to commit to a response, 100% commit. When you say it might be, then now it might be, it might not be. So that's super easy. Just add some of those qualifiers to the questions that just open them up a little bit. And that allows students to save face. And then another along that same line is to give students language that allows them to undercommit. So for example, they may say, right now this is what I'm thinking, but I might change my mind later. Or I'm about 20% sure on what I'm going to say. Well, if you're 20% sure that your answer is right, that means you're 80% sure that your answer is wrong. Mm-hmm. So if you're wrong, it turns out you were right that you were wrong.
Oh. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Could you share with us a favorite questioning strategy that works particularly well in the middle school classroom, possibly, if you could, across content and subject areas?
Sure. So I love to see teachers and work with teachers in schools that are trying to elevate students asking better questions, not just teachers. So in order to do that, to create that type of a strategy, anytime that you're trying to facilitate a group discussion or a class discussion, instead of asking the question and then asking for hands or volunteers or whatnot, set up, just if you don't already have elbow partners or turn and talk partners, pair share, whatever your listeners call it. Yeah. But instead of turn and talk to your partner, flip that to a turn and ask your partner. And so even if partner A is asking the same question that the teacher would have asked, we're normalizing the fact that questions come from everywhere. And it also identifies a distinct speaker and a listener. So we have a questioner and a responder. So you say partner A, ask partner B this question, and then you know you can flip it. Next time, partner B, ask partner A this question. So we equalize their talk time. We're bringing questions and responses, which is the beginning of dialogue. So we don't just have the teacher posing a question and students saying to their partner, I think it's this, and then the other partner says, I think it's that, and then they stare at you because they're done talking because they answered your question. As opposed to making eye contact in that little more intimate setting, shoulder to shoulder. Now they're having a conversation and the teacher is freed up to roam the room, listen in on those conversations, intentionally choose the partnerships where they want to get more formative assessment data. So you get a way better dipstick of having 50% of your students talking to the other 50% than having 10 kids in the air or 10 hands in the air of the same students who are always the ones who volunteer.
Hands are always up. Yeah. It provides a little more accountability of like, you're not allowed, you could be, but you're less allowed, or less allowed is probably not the right word, but less opting out of a student, right?
Right. Yep.
Because if you're just asking turn and talk or raise a hand, you get the same hands, and every other person in the room knows Connie's going to raise her hand, so I don't really have to think about the answer. Exactly. I'll just wait for Connie to answer it, right?
Yes, and then we spend a lot of our cognitive energy going, okay, I've had the same hand, so now how am I going to solicit more hands?
Yeah.
And we just don't need to be spending our time. We have enough going on cognitively while we're teaching.
Yes.
That doesn't have to be one of them.
And it's not a good use of the little bit of classroom time you have.
Agree.
So I've also seen another good strategy, like the share out of accountability. Like some really good teachers will say, like, share not what you answered, like share what your partner said, because it's really low burden to share what Phyllis said. Because I don't necessarily have to claim it's my thinking and be right or wrong, right?
Sometimes what I'll do is we'll be generating ideas in the small groups or generating questions, and then I ask them to put them on the wall and walk around and pick their favorite, but it can't be their own, and then read it out loud. Because it loosens their thinking, it strips away the social risk, and
and celebrates questions. Right? Because how many times do they go to a class and the teacher says, thumbs up if you understand, thumbs sideways if you sort of kind of get it, and thumbs down if you still have more questions. Yeah. That is not the message that we want to send to students, that a thumbs down is a negative connotation, that you still have questions. If you still have questions, you have curiosity. you have inquiry, you have motivation, you have drive. Why do we want to squash that with a thumbs down?
Yeah.
It's a great
Oh,
point.
we have an English language arts teacher at our school that always says, okay, whole group, like, we're not starting until I have 3 questions.
Love
Like, we have
that.
to generate 3 questions. You can talk to each other, or if somebody has one now, you can share, but we're not going to start until collectively we have 3 questions.
Well, you're also, being able to ask a question is actually a deceptively simple social skill. And so you are not only teaching the content, you're also teaching really important social skills to these kids, and they don't even know that they are being
Absolutely
taught those social skills. So I think this is really, your whole line of work is actually much more important probably than people would ever think. It seems like one thing, but it's not. It's like 100 different things go into asking a question and teaching kids how to take risks, how to develop the social skills to have a reciprocal conversation, how to answer in the moment and think on your feet. There are just so many skills that
advocate
are involved.
for yourself.
Advocate for yourself, all of it. So we usually end with one signature question, and I feel like we did get into the weeds on a lot of practical suggestions, but if you were going to choose one questioning move that we didn't talk about already that you think every middle school educator should try to spark deeper thinking, what would you suggest they try?
Add metacognitive questions to the content questions. So we are usually prepared, our curricular materials provide us with more than enough content-related questions. We can never even get through all of them. And so we tend to spend all of our time trying to get through as many content questions as possible. The metacognitive questions, that's where the money is. So those are questions like, what strategy can you use? How challenging is this for you? Where have you seen something like this before? What might be your first step? What's an indication that you're making progress or that you're stuck? All of those things that shift their focus back into their minds and allow them to be reflective on themselves as learners, not just as students of math or students of literature or whatever content area that they're in. And that then allows them to be reflective and independent, because if you can answer those questions on your own, what's a strategy I could use? Where have I seen something like this before? I'm way more likely to persevere out of productive struggle than to raise my hand and ask my teacher to come over and fix it for me.
That's great advice. Thank you, first of all, for joining us. And I would love to be able to share with listeners where they can find Hacking Questions and explore more of your work, if you want to share.
Sure. Hacking Questions is any place where you can buy books. You can find that. I have plenty of resources on my website. Everything is free on my website, so lots of downloads. It looks like a shopping cart, but everything is $0.00. So it's TPT but free, and you can find that at conniehamilton.org.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.